I mean, the fact is that if January 6th teaches us anything, we need to deepen democracy. We need to extend more choices for people. We need to have a voting system which encourages candidates not to polarize, but to bring people together.
My father was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. And so I grew up knowing about poll taxes and literary tests and all of the things and the barriers that were put in place for African Americans in the Jim Crow South. And, you know, things have changed, but not really in the way that we would like them to. They're not as obvious, but they're still happening. And I see ranked choice voting as a part of all of this discussion in where we are as a country and what we want to see for the people in our country. I think, you know, having one person, one vote is such an important aspect of what we stand for as Americans and in the United States, that ranked choice voting is absolutely necessary to accomplish that.
I want to just say that I absolutely am a very proud supporter of ranked choice voting. It's a great idea. It has worked. It's not too complicated. It's not confusing. It's actually pretty simple. And I love it when people have ranked choice voting for like cakes and stuff like that, because then it shows, you know, just how simple and straightforward that it is. It has put us in a position to have a more representative municipal government in Minneapolis and many other places around our state. And I hope it grows.
There's two things that spring to my mind. So one is just that, like, whatever else we can say about ranked choice voting, it's just fundamentally democracy should reflect actual voters' preferences as to results. And this is a method that does that more effectively. We can talk about the various political ramifications and various things that come out of that, but just at a fundamental level, let's just acknowledge that voters are going to have preferences where they might prefer one candidate a little bit, but then their next choice is this one and their third choice is that one. Our democracy should reflect that.
About 80% of the people who make $150,000 a year or more, regardless of party, they vote. So if you're making good money, you're probably voting. People who make below 50,000, their voter turnout, if you look at the years going by, drops to around 35%. So there is a very strong economic component to this.
Because truthfully, I mean, as a refugee and an immigrant, I was just busy trying to survive, right? To not have to rely on my parents, to try to, you know, get through school, because I didn't have parents navigating that. I didn't have any social cultural capital to help me through this process. And when I finally, and I was letting everybody make decisions for me, and I felt the same way everybody else felt, that the system is really disenfranchising, that, you know, the negativity that is in politics discourages us, that we don't like our choices that are given to us, right? Like until Obama showed up, I never thought there was a good choice, right? And so for me, really understanding that I'm an educated person, I have no barriers around language and time, and yet I did not engage in the voting process until my 30s. And when I think about what prevents people from getting to that place, like ranked choice voting would address a lot of these issues. It would make the process so that it's easier for people to navigate. It would make it so that there is less negativity, you know, in the campaigning process. It would make it so that, you know, people felt like even if they couldn't get their first choices, that they were still participating in the process that allowed them to choose subsequent individuals that they could get behind. And so, you know, this is really important to me, and I show up every day, not just because I'm an elected official and that I think this is what I'm supposed to do. It's because I know that it matters, and that the people who are most hurt by not engaging in this process are BIPOC people, people who are from low income communities, people who have language barriers, people who have barriers to time and access and resources. Like, those are the people most hurt. And we have to fix this process so that we can engage all of those individuals.
And when you think about the fact that the legislature convened on January 5th this year, and then we all saw what happened on January 6th and since, and our caucus named our fourth priority, which is really kind of in some ways, I think, saving the big one for the last, is to protect and advance our democracy. Because we know how important that is. And we know the threat that is being posed on so many different ways. And this isn't just about January 6th. This is about an ongoing, persistent agenda that, you know, the misinformation that as we've talked about so-called election fraud over years, decades, that have led to voter suppression legislation, not just here in Minnesota, but around the country.
I'm glad to join you and wanted to say mainly how pleased I am to have the progress I see us making on ranked choice voting. I think we're getting close. I wish we would get a vote in the Senate on it, but I think it's about time. It's long overdue that we have ranked choice voting, not only so it represents the will of the people, avoids the spoiler problem, which in several elections, there was one party picking up, getting candidates to run in order to serve as spoilers. It avoids that problem. But the other thing that I appreciate is that ranked choice voting stops candidates from attacking each other so much. They start talking about what they're for instead of what's wrong with the other people. And I think that improves our democracy. But that, and there's so many other issues we have. Emma's bill has been mentioned already, has so many provisions in it. I think we have to work on our move to amend legislation to overturn Citizens United. The campaign finance reform issues have not gotten better, they've gotten worse, and a lot of work to do. But
I think that, quite honestly, I think that the impact would be that it would cut the amount of people who will get to vote. If those things passed, it would limit and reduce the number of people who have access to the ballot, because there's a lot of people who don't have an ID. It's not legally required to have an ID and to carry an ID around. And if you require that, there will be people who will not get to vote, who may have gotten to vote in prior elections. There was a case in Indiana where 8 nuns who had voted the same place for 30, 40, 50 years were turned away from voting because they didn't have IDs on them. And this is absolutely the case. So that will be the effect. My mind was jumping to what we were going to do to fight it. I'll challenge it in court. I'll get other people to challenge it in court, and we'll organize on the ground to defeat it. But we just defeated this thing only 8 years ago at the ballot. I mean, Minnesotans said no. So why are we doing this again? I agree that Lori Sturdivant's op-ed, if y'all didn't read it, was really good. If somebody could put it in the chat for those who have not seen it yet, it's a bad idea. And if anybody wants me to go on how bad it is, I'll be happy to do so. But I'd like somebody to show me a case of imposter voting. They can't do it. So what are we doing this for?
There's an up and down in politics, national politics and local politics as well. And I've been around long enough to see all of that happen, from the early bus boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama, to the protests that have happened recently. But I believe there's a vitality in democracy, and I think that ranked choice voting is an example of how it is we can put votes in the hands of people and democracy and a majority of leaders in office.